I'm recording the meeting just anyway, right? You wanted me to record it, Steve?
Well, we should have a recording, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What are we up to? We were discussing the designated agricultural districts that have been recommended to be added in the town of Lebanon, and we were supposed to review them, and I believe the town board wants the CAC's take on those. Is there any discussion? And we have a motion to accept them as they are.
David, I couldn't really hear you. Could you say that again?
Okay, so I believe the town board is looking to the CAC to voice our approval of those designated additions to the agricultural districts. Did everybody have a chance to review those?
Yes.
Okay, is there any objection? I mean, I can't imagine why we as the CAC would be objecting to the addition of those agricultural districts.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. It seemed fine.
Yeah, so, I mean, do we need to be on record with a motion that we are approving them and pass that on to the town board? Or can we simply say we have no objection and let it be known?
Well, there's no objection from anybody here. I think you could certainly say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's just do that. And I believe the town board was seeking, the reason why I was notified was because they wanted the CAC's input. And then, Steve, you and I attended that morning, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. DEC informational webinar back on December 15th, which was after we last met as a CAC. It was after our monthly meeting, the next day, in fact. Is there anything that you feel we should be sharing with the CAC from that meeting?
No, you know, for me, actually, a lot of that was redundant. I had heard most of that stuff before in other webinars that they had given, but it was just sort of a wrap up of the programs that and who runs them, which was actually interesting for me to find out who runs the CSC program in the DEC, because I didn't know that before. But
and that was Maureen Letty, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yep. And I found the most interesting of, I mean, the funnest, the one that was the most fun was the J.R. Jacobson's Fish and Wildlife. He went through a history of pipeline reviews where they had, where the DEC did a careful evaluation and recommended against a particular pipeline and then had to go to court multiple times over several decades, it sounded like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out J.R. Jacobson, who did that presentation, is the husband of a fellow board member of mine on the Rensselaer Plateau Alliance, so I thought he was humorous. So just quickly, it was Maureen Letty doing a presentation on climate change, several of the DEC people doing presentations on water, coastal protection, floodplain mapping, public safety and dams, signage at flood control projects. Then the Fish and Wildlife was wetlands and habitat protection. Lands and Forest was Justin Perry, Chief Bureau of Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health, and he did a presentation on terrestrial and aquatic invasive species. Then there was Materials Management, which was Kayla Montagne and Christine Ellsworth and Rick Clarkson, and that was plastic bag ban and food donation, food scraps recycling law. So they just they were updating us on all of the advances in legislation, basically, that the EC now needs to regulate. And then there was communication services. They have a lot of, the EC now has a lot of online mapping services that we would be wise to use when we are coming to a decision on how we're going to respond to a proposal before the planning board. And that was basically it, right, Steve?
Yeah, I actually didn't stay for the whole thing because there was another webinar from the town of Richmond that I was asked to join, which was also very interesting.
Okay. So I wanted everybody to know that the quad board meetings are resuming, and the next one is on January 20th, and I will be present for that. It's a Google Meet meeting. Hopefully my computer will cooperate. And I think that the plan is to have those every other month or thereabouts, at least 4 times a year. And the lawyer for the town will be present, and the idea of the quad board meeting is to basically, I think, address zoning issues that are seen as hindrances to development in town. So once we have that meeting, I'll share with you at our next meeting what takes place. Is there any thought amongst us that we should participate in the next town newsletter? The deadline is January 15th, which means it will reach everybody's mailboxes on February 1st. So Peg, you and I may be able to talk offline on whether we want to introduce the notion of trees for tribs in Shapford Park.
Yes, sure. That would be
Okay.
fine. Yep. I think we should just have a little quick conversation. Does the CSC have you must be having an entry for the town newsletter on what you've been doing, yes? We've been doing?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
We could go even further than that as a CAC and talk, catch people up on the water study, where it stands. So Peg, you and I can talk about that.
Yeah, sure. You don't mean to, yes, sure.
Okay. So, yeah, we're running short on time now. So we did raise the issue of should we be thinking of a different date and of the week, weekday and date of the month for our CAC meetings.
Now, I
So-
believe we came to the decision, I thought everybody pretty much agreed to leave it because there's too many other meetings. And if the planning board has a subcommittee and a couple of people can talk about that together, you know, that was, I believe that's what we discussed last month, David.
Yes, we did. You proposed to have a subcommittee address the proposals before the planning board because the planning board's agenda is never going to coincide with our monthly meeting. But given that they are fast tracking a lot of the proposals these days, it would help for them to hear from the CAC early on as opposed to waiting until later in the process. And my thought was that they always take at least 60 days, but I'm not sure if that's always true now. What do you think, Bob?
I think it depends absolutely on the project. I mean, I you know, the Nocoma stuff, their projects, you know, seem to take quite a while. Other things seem to get fast tracked, but each project that I've been keeping track of, there are at least 2 meetings, you know, so it's really not 60 days. It's probably more like 40 days.
Yeah, but I mean, within that time frame, we always do have a meeting.
Yes, yes, we
make
do.
Final decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Okay. So Peg, do you want to talk about Peg, you can simply let us all know again that you're going to have these tutorials online about Google Drive.
Yeah, right. So what we thought we would do, you know, there are videos available. Google has their own information available, but Mark and I thought a little personal touch to get people started, at least to access the information already that's on Google Drive and that we're organizing. I'm putting more information on there, and so people know where to look and how to do it and how to communicate and how to put documents on. So we're having 6:30 on Wednesday. We're doing a short tutorial. Anyone is welcome, as we are doing on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. as well this week. And people can jump on or not and learn a little bit more about Google. But if no one can, I know Paul said he couldn't make it, and a couple of people said they could. And there is material available. We will send the link to a YouTube video and some other information. But my thing was not a very deep dive, but just a pretty superficial way about how to share information. So we're not always, you know, so things don't get lost and they don't get shuffled, and we're updated on projects, because as we move along, I think Google Drive especially with CSC and CAC starting to work more together. It's getting a little bit cumbersome. So it's a really nice way to organize things.
Peg, will that be the same tutorial on Wednesday and Thursday, or will it be two different tutorials?
Same.
Okay.
Okay.
And we can record it, Peg. So we
Sure.
can post the recording.
Yeah, no, it makes sense that documents are much more accessible on Google Drive than they are when you try to backtrack through emails that have a trail, right?
Right. And then people can look up stuff, and it's not super organized now, but it's getting there.
Yeah, no, good idea. So we talked about responses to planning board proposals via subcommittee, but I think that we should try for the next month to see whether our input, we're not going to find out the agenda for this month's meeting until next week, or until later this week, I should say. And but we will have a chance at next month's meeting then to come to address our response to those proposals. And let's see if that works.
I think it's a great idea. And again, like I said, I don't think we need to change our meetings at all monthly because it's too difficult to find a day. So I think that works great.
Yeah, okay. So now the CSC task force tie-ins, we talked at length, actually,
Yeah.
courtesy of Mark's
Yeah.
presentation, and that's something that we have to come to a consensus on what our goals this year should be. And it definitely seems to me that we're going to have to pay attention to how to tie best into the CSC goals. I wanted to remind everybody, Taconic Hiking Club memberships cost $10. I renewed mine. It would be good if others on the CAC, and for that matter, the CSC, were also members of the Taconic Hiking Club. They do a nice amount of, they do monthly newsletters, and they reinforce our proximity to the Taconic crest.
And you get a really cool patch when you join.
Yes, you get a nice pack, correct. And then Mark mentioned that the Rensselaer Plateau Alliance had a monthly lecture. They do monthly lectures. They're usually the second Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. and they've been lately by Zoom. But when people can meet face to face, they've been at Sand Lake Town Hall, which is actually not that far drive from New Lebanon. But the last one Mark attended, and it was about trails, and he found it very useful. So I wanted to reiterate that the Rensselaer Plateau Alliance does have monthly lectures, and they are on the second Thursday of the month, and they're open to everyone. They request a donation, but you don't need to donate to attend.
And that trail one, which was pretty amazing, focusing on like the commercial value or economic value of having a trail network. It's posted on their website, so you can still go back and listen to it. But I thought it might be very interesting for New Lebanon as well.
And this was discussed quite a bit at the rail trail meetings that were had last year or 2 years ago now. And a lot of people brought up the economic value, and I think that's really important. I know we're trying to get through the meeting, but it's another thing the CAC, I think, can get involved in.
Well, the CSC as well, I think there are points, aren't there, within CSC for promoting recreational opportunities?
There's points for promoting biking and walking.
Yeah, so rail network is critical for that.
Yeah.
And then I simply wanted to briefly mention that the Corkscrew Rail Trail hasn't officially opened that segment on Lover's Lane, but I think there's thoughts that this spring will be on the grand unveiling, opening it to the public. And we're paying an annual insurance premium for the public entering that land that we own, so we might as well let the public in. So Peg, you wanted to quickly to share, is it something that maybe you could share via an attachment to, or just simply post on Google Drive now?
The water study?
Well, no, I'm thinking of the preliminary list that you came up with, and most of them have to do with water, correct?
Yeah, it's, you basically, the first couple of items that Mark and I talked at length about, and I just so appreciate Mark's help because this is a big area that I have not done before. This is kind of these long-term planning. The watershed stuff we were looking at is really long-term, and he kind of laid it out in the little chat he just did, and I really appreciate, Mark, that you rejiggered your chat to talk about these things. So that was what I was thinking, but when I looked at it, it's quite long-term and it's definitely something we can look at. But I think these couple of items that he circled on the, what are they called? The PE7 items are just something we're gonna have to decide as a committee if we want to work with CSC on these and if they further the CAC's goals. It was a big chunk for me to deal with this month and I really, as you can tell, I need some help with it. So, did that make any sense?
Yeah, well, I think that we probably should circle back to this at next month's meeting in February and
Yep.
probably need at that point to have a thorough discussion just what our goals, we have to be realistic about which goals we should set that can be accomplished.
Right, right. And we're already, yes, agreed.
The same, it's early enough in the year in February to come to a consensus on that. So the water study, Peg, you've been doing a lot of work there. You might want to quickly share with us.
Yeah, it hasn't, I know it looks like a lot. Really right now what we're doing, where we're at is we've contacted everybody in the very concerning areas with wells in those 2 concerning areas. And everyone, those people have all agreed to share information. We got almost all the information we need. And then we got a residential list and other places to test around the county. Steve Winkley, they sent it to us. It's all on the Google Drive if anyone wants to see it. And the people that he picked were basically people that responded to the well water survey 3 years ago. So that was kind of smart because he figured they would be cooperative. So Tishri has started reaching out to those people and I'm going to follow up. She's done the initial reaching out and then I follow up and explain everything. And so Steve Winkley is, we're going to get some dates for the Department of Health meeting, the preliminary meeting with them. And I hope by then we'll have all the names that we want to present to them, of suggestions of people and places we want to test. And hopefully they'll go for most of those. And Steve covered all the areas that we were concerned with. And so that was actually a really lucky, kind of a lucky confluence with the well water survey responders happen to be in all the areas. Of course, New Lebanon's not that big. So they check all the boxes that DOH wanted. So we're just about in the next, I think this week we'll have all the names agreed upon. David and I were on that list, but we've removed ourselves. And I'm approaching my next door neighbor and Steve Axelrod, who lives next door to David, is being approached. And that's really where we're at. And then we're hoping the Department of Health will agree with the names that have agreed to give us the information. And we'll see where we're at with that. And the well testing won't take long, as David mentioned last month. It's a very quick process. So
yeah, they're waiting until winter breaks before
Right.
they do it. Ideally, it's from an outdoor spigot that hasn't gone through any kind of filtration within the house.
Right.
We're not quite clear that they're going to do a lot of, it's like a general test. We're not quite clear yet whether they'll go further and do PFOSs, but that's possible still,
It's
right?
possible. We're not that concerned in town with PFOA, PFOS. That's the idea I'm getting. It's other chemicals from the Ceramacel and Ceramtech and the Bouchard. It's other things, but I don't know in the junkyard if there was a lot of carpets and Teflon and treated fabrics. Maybe someone else knows. So we're less concerned with PFOA, PFOS at the moment, as far as I understand. But there are a lot of other expensive tests that they're going to do on those Ceramacel, the Ceramtech and the junkyard.
And then the idea also in terms of proposing a list of other residences is to be sure that we are covering geographically most of the town, not all of it.
I think I just said that.
I guess one of my questions is anybody up where we are up off County Route 5 being tested?
Yeah, so all the list and everybody is on the Google Drive, and I will send you the link for that in an email. I believe we've covered all the areas that DOH was particularly interested in hitting. That's why I said, that we've checked those boxes with these people.
Okay.
But I will double check that, Bob, absolutely.
Yeah, DOH expressed a strong interest in doing testing where there's limestone, marble specifically, but that's towards the Taconic Crest, so that end of town is where the heavy marble is in town. And I think that we've satisfied them with a number of residences that would qualify.
Yep.
So we're almost out of time. We're not aware of what the agenda is for the planning board, so we can't talk about that. We'll have to skip our progress reports. I attended the CSC meeting, and it turns out, how many of you are now also CAC members on the CSC Community Task Force, CSC Task Force?
Everybody but Paul.
Jenna, Bob, me, and Steve.
Yeah, it's a majority.
We can have a vote here.
At least it was at that meeting.
I just wanted to, to add, really, it just looks like there's a lot of synergy that we can do with CSC and CAC. I think we have a lot of common goals. There's a slightly different tracks, but I think that it can really inform, like Mark said so well, what we can do and achievable goals and all that. So
I'm pretty sure you guys are already doing 2 of the actions without a lot of extra work, meaning the water quality protection, the point source water quality testing is one action. And then the other one is just conserving natural areas. So I think already the CAC is doing two of the CSC actions. More points.
Yep, which is good.
We really only care about the points. We've given up on climate change a long time ago.
I'm looking at the calendar. The next meeting would be the 8th of February, the night before the town board meets. And we will have seen before then what the planning board is planning to address if they are in fact having a meeting in January. We'll know that later this week. So let's see how that goes in terms of how we frame our responses to any proposals before the planning board.
do we know who's going to be on that subcommittee, David?
We have to have volunteers.
I'll volunteer.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Bob is actually offering to attend meetings, but he wants to do them remotely. And is that possible, Bob? Are they set up to have
No,
them?
they're not. They are not filming them. Unfortunately.
So they're only offered live. You have to go in person to the
Right.
to the firehouse.
Yes.
Wow.
Which I'll be honest and say I'm not so keen on doing.
Right. Well, especially since we're seeing 50 new cases a day in Columbia County of the virus.
I can guess why they don't want to do it online. A lot of those people probably don't know how to do it. I'm guessing because it's stupid with COVID. I mean, it's just stupid.
Yes, short-sighted. So we can agree to adjourn for tonight. We didn't cover the whole of our agenda, but
I think we should.
we have technical difficulties.
Before we adjourn, I just wanted to go back over what we decided or didn't decide to do in terms of the board meeting tomorrow. If you're going to call Adelia, and if she agrees, then you're going to continue with or tell Tistria that we should continue to with the motion to add 1 seat to the CAC. Is that it?
I'm going to circle back to Adelia. If she tells me she's no longer interested, i.e. we only have 1 candidate who's expressed interest, but the problem there is that they allow a 30-day window for people to express interest, and they can't act until they have allowed those 30 days to lapse. So that's why I'm surprised. I hadn't read the agenda for tomorrow night's meeting. I'm surprised to hear that they're actually addressing this at tomorrow night, because we don't know in fact whether there's interest from enough people.
How did it get on the agenda, David? You didn't put it on?
No, I didn't put it on. I spoke to, or I spoke to Tistria, and then I emailed her with the language from the enabling legislation from 1975, which does say up to 9 members are permitted on the on the CAC, and maybe she wants to expand
May
the
have
CAC.
just misunderstood, that's all.
I'll circle back to her tomorrow as well.
Okay.
You know, not for nothing, but I've seen a lot of items just skipped on the agenda because it just wasn't relevant anymore by the time the agenda, the meeting came around. So it's not
Mhm.
unusual anyway for them to just skip items.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so we are adjourned.
we are.
Right.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you.
for joining. Stay safe.